Good evening, everybody. I'm Chad Schweitzer, the Instructional Assistant Superintendent, here to talk with you tonight about Assembly Bill 130 and what enrollment looks like at Capital City Independent Study Program. Looks like we have a few more participants joining, so we'll pause just for a second and let those last few participants get in. And it looks like we've slowed down and leveled off. So I want to welcome you all and thank you for joining us tonight. With me tonight, we have our Superintendent, Jorge Aguilar, our Chief Communication Officer, Tara Gallegos, our Chief Academic Officer, Christine Vieta, and our Principal at Capital City, Mr. Darrell Amarine. And with that, I would like to introduce Superintendent Aguilar.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schweitzer. Can I ask Isabel to give notice about translation services, please?
Para los asistentes de esta reunión hay un sistema de interpretación. Yo voy a ser la intérprete. Entonces van a ponerle el cambio abajo donde puedan elegir español en inglés. Entonces ahorita lo van a poner para que cada quien que no hable el idioma lo pueda elegir y puedan oír este seminario en español.
Thank you. Gracias, Isabel. Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Jorge Aguilar. I'm Superintendent of Sac City Unified School District. First of all, I want to just thank you for making time. I realized that it was very short notice. Certainly, this is not going to be the place where we are going to talk details about why this is such short notice, but I do want to just acknowledge that we owe you an apology. We know that many of you have expressed interest in understanding more about our independent study program and how the district plans to follow AB 130, which is legislation that was signed recently by the state legislature. Let me just say for our new students and families that may be joining Sac City, I want to welcome you on behalf of all of our team at Sac City Unified, as well as board members. I understand that among the attendees this evening, we have President Pritchett, we have Board Member Villa, Board Member Garcia, Jamie Villa, and Leticia Garcia. We may have other board members as well who are participating this evening and wanted to be with you even with this such short notice. Our team will describe a little bit more about how you will be able to interact with us over the course of the next hour, how you will be able to ask questions. We are going to do everything we can to incorporate some of those questions in our commentary over the course of the deck of slides that we have prepared for you as participants this evening. We know that districts throughout California are struggling with this issue simply because it was legislation that was passed not too long ago, and that about 1,300 of our families have expressed interest in understanding more about this program. Again, we had thought about pursuing a program that is different than the one that you are going to hear about today, but I am excited and do want to honor that we have a lot of staff members that have been putting countless hours to make sure that for those of you who feel more comfortable attending an independent study program for whatever reason, that we owe this kind of information to you, and we will do our best to answer as many questions as we can during the session today. And then our commitment is to make sure that we continue to communicate through FAQs, some of the most common questions and answers that we want to make sure our students and our families have. I do want to acknowledge that independent study for Sac City Unified traditionally has been a pretty small program. It serves a small number of our nearly 40,000 student population in Sac City. And I want to say thank you to Principal Darrell Amarine, who's here and is excited about sharing information about the Independent Studies program at Cap City that he oversees. So you're going to hear Cap City, that's the name of our Independent Study program. We know that because I've been asked about this, that many of you were still interested in a distance learning program, that some of you were still interested in a concurrent enrollment program, that you saw us operate with over the course of the past academic year. That has gone away by law. We are not allowed to provide those learning platforms. And the only thing that we can offer is in-person instruction or an independent study option for our students and families. I know that that is difficult for some of you, but that is what we have to follow in terms of law. I know that I said it, I'll say it again, the timeline was much shorter than we would have liked, and we had envisioned a different program under AB 130, but nevertheless, we're here today to talk to you about, again, the program that we offer through Cap City Independent Study. And we will continue to try to take as many opportunities as we have to improve the independent study model that we operate with at Cap City, and hope that we will be able to give more information to you because of the questions that you have sent us and have been asking for a number of weeks now. I do want to just reiterate, and we will explain further, that you can return to your original campus, that is the campus that you would have started in-person instruction within 5 days at any time. One of the most often asked questions over the course of the past weeks has been, can my child return to the school that they would have attended if they had returned to in-person instruction? The answer is yes. We have worked out the details to make sure that those families, we have about 35% of our families whose students do not attend the school of residence that belongs to them, their neighborhood school. That's because we are an open enrollment school district, and we heard loud and clear that it was important for many of our families who might choose independent study as a learning platform that they be able to return to that school that they would have attended through in-person instruction. Again, for 35% of our students, it's a school that is not their school of residence because of open enrollment. I do want to, of course, acknowledge my faith and confidence that as most of our 40,000 students are getting ready to come back to school on Thursday, we have implemented a very strong set of health and safety protocols to mitigate the spread of COVID. We will be requiring masks indoor and outdoors as well. We have made some shifts to how we serve meals, for example, how we screen our students, a very extensive testing program that I just want to acknowledge and thank our staff for their commitment. We are among few districts where testing can be done at each of our school sites as opposed to central locations where families have to travel to get tested. We thought that it was very critical that as part of our mitigation protocols and measures that our families are able to get tested for COVID at their schools. So I just want to again reiterate that we have spent countless days and hours making sure that we are ready to welcome back our students and our staff in a very safe manner starting on Thursday. And I can't wait to be out and about our community. I, of course, express some of that confidence, everyone, not just as superintendent, but also as a father of 3 students who still attend Sac City Unified. And again, I just want to acknowledge the amount of work that has gone in to prepare for our reopening in just a few days. I also want to recognize that for some of you, you may need more time to think about this critical question about independent study. And of course, that's okay. But do keep in mind on what's happening on campus. And again, know that you can return within a 5-day period at any time, and we'll explain and give more details around what that means per AB 130, again, which is law now. Again, I do want to just end by apologizing as superintendent for the delay in this information. I would have wanted to provide this information much sooner. And again, as a parent myself, I see the frustration. My children at this point, we intend to send them to their schools. They're excited about in-person instruction, but I recognize that that may not be the case for all of us. That would be very frustrating for me as a parent as well, and I recognize that. Again, I look forward to spending the next hour with you, and I'm going to turn it over back to Mr. Schweitzer and the rest of our team to get this started. Again, thank you for attending this evening.
All right. Thank you very much, Superintendent Aguilar. Vincent, if you would start the slideshow, please. And go ahead and go to the next slide. I too greatly appreciate your patience during this process of implementing AB 130. For tonight's presentation, we've turned off the chat feature. You do have the opportunity to input questions in the Q&A that we'll try to monitor throughout the presentation, as well as we'll walk you through a Padlet opportunity in just a few moments, show you how to use that and be able to collect more questions on that Padlet page. So on this slide, we'd just like to spend a moment talking about our Return Together plan that describes what our in-person learning and how it is our best option for our students. Students and staff, their health, their safety, and well-being are a top priority for everyone. We are following all of the California Department of Public Health and Sac County Public Health guidelines, and we're focusing on high-quality instruction that is standards aligned. We're remaining flexible as we navigate COVID and AB 130 and returning students to our campuses or to Cap City. And as we reopen, we recognize the need to provide care, and we're focusing on academics, our social emotional needs, and physical needs of our community. And lastly, we hope to be able to provide you tonight with information about Assembly Bill 130 so you can make an informed decision about sending your student to either their current school or to Cap City. Next slide. Research from all over the world shows that children get COVID-19 less often than adults do. We've had students back in school since last fall, and while we've had students test positive for COVID-19, we have not had any spread of the virus due to the students being in school. When children do get COVID-19, the most common way they get it is from an adult in their household and not from other students in school. California health experts have offered multiple tips to keep their students safe, and we'll get to that on the next slide. This model represents all of the layers of protection we're incorporating into our reopening for our students and staff to ensure their safety. The Swiss cheese respiratory pandemic defense recognizes that no single intervention is perfect at preventing the spread of the coronavirus. While each layer does have holes in it, multiple layers implemented together improve our success rate. And here's some of the ways that we are protecting our students and staff at Sac City. Our district has provided over 22,000 doses of the COVID vaccine, and we continue to host events and promote the vaccination effort. Everyone on our campuses is required to wear a face covering at all times. Testing is available for students and staff at every school and at the Cerna Center every day. We recommend routine testing. We're telling students and staff to stay home when they're sick. We're following all the safe hygiene with hand washing and sanitizing on a daily basis. We've made significant investments into our health program and have additional nurses and health aides on staff to assist with our contact tracing. We continue to regularly disinfect those high-touch areas, and we've increased our ventilation, which improves airflow on campus by installing HEPA units, the highest rated filters up to MERV 13. And distancing criteria is no longer required in schools under California Department of Public Health guidance. However, all individuals should maintain as much physical distance as practically possible, and staff will be on campuses to assist. During meal times, masks will be removed so students can eat or drink, but we'll still encourage physical distancing to be maximized. We do see these protocols working. Our test positivity rate remains lower than the county and is currently at about 1.9% compared to the county, which is 6%. Next slide. Hope we were able to share a few of the measures being taken district-wide to safely reopen our schools and have students attend in-person instruction. We'd now like to move into what we're able to offer at Cap City under AB 130 guidelines. And we know you're going to have questions tonight. We want to provide you with an opportunity to ask these questions if we don't cover them. So Vincent, if you'll put the Padlet into the chat and give our parents an opportunity to click on that link and join us in Padlet for a moment. And Vincent's going to do a great job of modeling how to insert a chat for us. So this is a Padlet form. You may have seen your students using it while we were on distance learning last year. It's an opportunity for you to input questions or comments. You'll see that there's a few columns that have questions about the presentation. Those columns include enrollment process, scheduling, assignments, and so forth. So if you have a question pertaining to one of those specific areas, you can click the plus button underneath that area, and you'll see a new window box pop up. You'll be able to input your question or comment. And then in that window, you can hit the pink publish button in the upper right-hand corner, and you'll see your comment appear on the Padlet. And this will give you an opportunity to see what other parents are asking and be able to ask your questions yourself. And we should have some time at the end of this presentation to address some of those concerns and try to answer them as we go throughout the process here. So we'll bring back up the presentation, and now we can talk about Assembly Bill 130. So AB 130 calls out the need to have an independent study program for students who are not yet ready to return to full in-person instruction. We're going to offer this long-term independent study program at Cap City, and that will be done virtually during independent study. Capital City is not a charter school. It's our site where students normally seek the independent study option. The process for enrolling in the independent study program is for parents to complete the interest form, which you've already done, and then respond to a survey that you'll receive this evening. We'll talk about that survey in a few minutes. When you enroll into Cap City, you'll also be expected to complete the written agreement. We'll also discuss that in the next few slides. And we've created a process to ensure that students have return rights to their home school and programs that they were previously enrolled in. So just to reiterate, we are aware that there are open enrollment schools. You might be in a special pathway or a special program at these schools, and we will ensure that you have return rights to those programs. We've created a process with office managers and registrars to ensure that once you are disenrolled from your current school, you're enrolled in Cap City, they will maintain the records. So upon your decision to return, we'll be able to put you back into that same school. All of our course objectives reflect the curriculum adopted by Sac City Governing Board, and that is consistent with district and state standards as outlined in the district course of study. And for the high school level, many of you are high school this evening, those classes will also meet A to G college entrance requirements. The instructional days and the time for synchronous instruction and live interaction will vary depending on the grade level, and they'll also be determined by their teacher according to AB 130 requirements. Next slide. Per the Education Code, students with exceptional needs may not participate in independent study program unless the student's IEP team specifically provides for that participation. An IEP meeting will take place as part of the parent, educator, and pupil meeting in order for the IEP team to determine if placement in independent study is appropriate, and we'll do that as quickly as possible. The district will continue to provide services in accordance with any previous 504 plans, IEPs, and English learner needs. We'll also continue to ensure that.
Can I pop in real quick? I'm sorry. Did you have more to say on that one?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to pop in and say, because we've heard from the community continued concerns regarding if my student is, and I saw it, I don't know if it was in the Q&A or if it popped up in this Padlet, but if my student currently has an IEP, can they attend the independent study program? And it says it here really clearly, but I did want to offer that your IEP team will need to meet and then determine whether or not your child's very specific and individual needs can be and how they will be met through the independent study option. So just like everything else we do for your child, if they do have an IEP, that has to happen at the IEP table, and it's very individualized for your student. So yes, they can possibly participate in independent study, And the first thing that has to happen is we must convene an IEP meeting and determine if the option will work for your child, and then how we can make sure that it will work for your child. So I just wanted to make sure as a mom of kids with special needs that I popped in with a little bit of that in that moment. Sorry, Mr. Schweitzer, if I interjected there on you.
Not a problem at all. Not a problem. We're being flexible here. So we'll continue to ensure that students are making educational progress, and if not, we'll implement tiered engagement strategies to determine what supports might be needed and ultimately what program is in the student's best interest to continue in. Next slide. So now we'll talk a little bit about what the instructional program looks like. So for our middle school students in grades 7 and 8, we have a plan to provide opportunities for both daily live interaction and at least weekly synchronous instruction. So communication every day and at least weekly synchronous instruction. Live interaction means interaction between the student and classified or certificated staff, and that may include their peers. And we're doing that to provide the purpose of maintaining school connectedness. So some type of daily live interaction to maintain connectedness with school. Synchronous instruction time is to be determined by the independent study teacher in mutual agreement with the parent guardian, and that will be documented in the written agreement. Synchronous instruction means classroom style instruction or small group one-on-one instruction delivered in person or in the form of internet or telephonic communication and involving live two-way communication between the teacher and student. So for many of you attending Capital City under AB 130, you will have virtual synchronous instruction. You will not need to attend Cap City. Everything will be done online. We'll sign the written agreement online. You'll meet with your teachers online, and you will not need to go to school for any reason. Everything will be virtual for you. All of that instruction is virtual. Instruction and assignments will be delivered and submitted via Zoom, potentially instructional packets, and during Google Classroom. Students will complete independent work as assigned by the teacher under the supervision of the parent or guardian. And I want to introduce Mr. Amorine. He is our principal over at Capital City, and he can talk a little bit more about the middle school program that your students would be enrolled in.
All right, welcome everybody. Like I said, my name is Daryl Amorine. I'm the principal at Capital City School, and I'll be helping all your students as they get introduced and put into this AB 130 and our online program. So a little bit about our program. In the past, when we did in person, I have 2 7th and 8th grade teachers, and they would teach 2 quarters. So one of my teachers teaches English and social studies for 7th and 8th grade. The other teaches math and science for the 7th and 8th grade. So I still have those same teachers, but now we're going to switch from in person twice a week for about an hour and a half a day to virtual learning for approximately an hour and a half a day, depending on the grade level. So for an example, if you had a 7th grade student and they were taking the math and science teacher class, they would be signed up to go from 9 to 10:30 on, say, Tuesday. And then on Thursday, they would see the history and the English teacher for an hour and a half a day. So they're still going to get direct instruction twice a week, almost as in if we're doing a block schedule. And then the 8th graders would go on Wednesdays and Fridays for the same amount of time. Then we would give the students some independent work to do. And then the teachers offer Zoom tutor hours or in-person instructional intervention, usually in the afternoon. So that way students have time during the day to get the work started. They might run into a hiccup and then they log into the afternoon office hours led by the teacher to get individualized help from that teacher. So we plan on still doing that, but now instead of doing that in person, we're going to set that up to be virtually done every single day of the week. With one day, we're going to do probably asynchronous, where the students would log in, turn in all their homework for the week, take any assessments that the teachers have, and then be ready back for instruction the following day on the days Tuesday through Thursday.
All right, thank you, Mr. Amorine. Next slide, please, Vincent. For students in the high school, grades 9 through 12, we'll also offer opportunities for at least weekly virtual instruction synchronously. That connectedness includes wellness checks, progress monitoring, provision of services, and instruction. And once again, this interaction could take in place, but will more than likely be done virtually upon your request. Instruction and assignments will be delivered and submitted via Zoom and Google Classroom. Students will complete their work independently under the supervision of their parent. And it's very important to note, at the secondary level, students are only able to take 2 classes at a time. And that would be 1 core class, such as English, math, history, or science, and 1 elective, like an art class or physical education. So they would only be taking 2 classes at a time. They typically last about 12 weeks, and then they would rotate in an additional 2 classes. And remaining at Cap City for the entire year would be beneficial. That way students get instruction in all 6 of the classes that they would normally take at a high school. And I'll introduce Mr. Amorine again to talk a little bit more about the high school instruction.
All right, so we're running this plan as we do for our in-person if AB 130 were not in place. So a typical student who might come to Capital City might have experienced some difficulty in school, having some social, emotional, or it may be just something that they have work and other priorities outside of the school where they can't go to 5 days a week, 6 hours a day. So our program is run in the fact that we work around student schedules and only require them to come to school 1 day a week for a 45-minute. What this will be a Zoom instructional time in which they will be given all their curriculum through the Google Classroom, and they will have a once a week 45-minute session with the teacher with potentially 1 student if it is a more serious intervention that needs to happen with them, or possibly small group. It all depends on how the teacher sets up the appointments with the class. We do assign work using all the district adopted curriculum. So we will be given A through G assignments. And then depending on what students we get, we may be able to offer other courses as needed. But like I said, that will all be determined by the number of students that plan on coming in and what their requirements are based on their current transcript and what they need to go to the next level, graduate, or otherwise.
All right, yeah, and I'm seeing some comments about how do we know what our schedule will be. It's really going to depend on what grade level you're in, if you're in middle school or high school, and what classes you might need in order to graduate, depending on that grade level. So once you meet with your teacher, you'll be able to work out a schedule and find out what that might be. Next slide. Your instructional materials can be obtained from your student's current school. I've spoken with many middle school and high school principals, and many of them have already offered materials pickup, like to come in and get your textbooks. If you don't have a Chromebook and need internet, you can obtain that from Cap City. They have plenty of Chromebooks and hotspots available for our students who are in need. Students attending Cap City must maintain satisfactory educational progress by attending class and turning in assignments to ensure their success while enrolled at independent study. Students who are not making satisfactory educational progress will receive tiered re-engagement strategies, such as verifying your contact information, student and parent contact, determining what support may be needed and implementing that support, and then in-person conferencing. If a student has failed to make satisfactory educational progress or uphold the terms of the written agreement, the independent study administrator shall conduct an evaluation to determine whether or not independent study is appropriate for that student to remain in. Next slide. We do have some responsibilities that we want to outline for the parents. Please note that this would be a voluntary enrollment at Cap City for independent study. Once again, that would be done virtually. So this is at your request. We want to ensure that you provide access to all the materials and textbooks and learning supplies, a quiet place at home to be able to do homework and get their studies done on a daily basis. Monitor students' participation in their live synchronous instruction and making sure that they turn in all of their assignments on time. And if it's determined that some interventions are needed, we want to ensure that the students are involved in that process so that we can provide the appropriate interventions and support to them. We also want to know beforehand if there's any barriers to student success so that we can put those into the written agreement and be sure to address them as we go. We also might want to need to provide transportation for some reason to and from school, depending on what their schedule looks like and if it's continuing to be virtual. Next slide. Some responsibilities for the students. They too, it's a voluntary participation in the independent study program. We expect their participation in the live interaction time and synchronous instruction as scheduled. Need to have access to a computer and internet during these times. Complete their assignments as directed by the teacher. Those will either be done via packets or most likely via Google Classroom at the secondary level. And then we also want them to be included in the intervention meetings so that we can be sure that they're getting supports that they need. Next slide.
Chad, can I just interrupt real quick? There's a couple questions that we want to make sure that are clarified. In the high school program, we will not be meeting with the students every single day as they would if they were in traditional school, going in person to 6 periods, 5 days a week. The students that are coming to Capital City will meet with their teacher 1 day a week for up to 45 minutes in a Zoom session. And then the work will be given and assigned to the students to get an entire unit of work done, because the courses are done within 10 to 12 weeks. So therefore they're completing an entire year of, say, an English 9 course within 12 weeks, along with an elective during that same time. After those 12 weeks are done, we transfer that student now to the math or the science or the social studies, and that teacher will pick up the student and go for another 12 weeks and get the next core class, plus maybe PE is done that time. And then after 12 weeks, they go to the 3rd and 4th subjects. Thus, an entire 36 weeks of the school year, we are able to complete the 60 units that are given to a normal student in a traditional school day. So that's just one of the clarifying questions that I've seen I wanted to address with everybody.
Great, thank you. All right. So I know Superintendent Aguilar spoke to this, so just want to reiterate that the parents who wish to have their students return to any in-person instruction can submit that request in writing to Mr. Amorine, the principal at Cap City, and you will be disenrolled from Cap City and re-enrolled back to your prior school within 5 days. So once again, we're saving those spots for you. We will make that process as easy as possible for you to be disenrolled and enrolled. You don't have to go to school to physically do that. The registrars and office managers will take care of that. And then within 5 days of that request, we will re-enroll you back into the school that you were previously attending. Students who are quarantined, we will not transfer students who have been quarantined at their current schools to Cap City under AB 130. Other students who are currently at their schools, if they're on quarantine, they would participate in short-term independent study at their home school. So Cap City is not a grounds where we would place all of the quarantine students, if you will, who are being short-term quarantined from learning. And although you can request attending Cap City at any point during the school year, at some point there may be a wait list depending on how many students want to enroll in that. Next slide.
Mr. Schweitzer, can I pop in for a minute again on that slide for just a sec? Something that I've seen come up. You can enroll in independent study at any time. So if right now, if you're thinking, I haven't turned anything in, I'm still working to make a decision, we're still thinking through. If you haven't let us know that you're interested, that's fine. You can enroll in independent study anytime during the year. You can start in person if that's what your family chooses. And then you can at any time say, we're not comfortable and we want to go into independent study, or you can start the year and let us know. When we get to the end, we are going to email out and post on our site a form asking you to let us know what your decision is, what's your plan. I also see some questions about staffing I wanted to just offer for a moment, especially since we're thinking right now about this written agreement. And we're really getting to the point where as a family, you're making a decision and committing to wanting to do this. And our staffing is going to be dependent on finding out who are the students who are really coming to this independent study programming. It's not coming to Cap City as a school in person, but joining the Cap City programming. And so our staffing will come to Cap City as we have people committing to coming to Cap City. So I see some questions about that, and we'll be ready to meet that need. The other thing that I've seen come up that I want to make sure that we reiterate, there is a difference between, and we've heard this in other questions and concerns that have come through the community. There's a difference between short-term independent study and the programming at Cap City that is independent study, long-term independent study. Short-term independent study is through AB 130 only up to 15 days. It's something we've always offered in our system, and other school districts offer this also for a variety of reasons that come to play for a family. Right now, some of the reasons that come to play for short-term independent study needs include, as Mr. Schweitzer mentioned, a quarantine. A quarantine might mean that your student needs to go into short-term independent study. That will be provided for you at your home school. Another reason that you may be, and this is coming up in another slide, I think, isn't it, Mr. Schweitzer? Another reason for short-term independent study might be at the beginning of this school year, if your family decides we do want to go into long-term independent study. As we move forward and get the staffing arranged, you can be in short-term independent study and still with your school. You do not have to go to your school, but your work can come to you from your home school, the school you're currently enrolled in, either through a Google Classroom form or via packet information. That's short-term independent study, and it can last for up to 15 days in a year. You can participate in that and then join the long-term independent study programming that Mr. Amorine will be offering through Cap City. And we will, I've seen some questions on this regarding, this is what we've heard from a specific school. We are guaranteeing you, and we have shared with our principals, you will have a spot at your home school within 5 days if you decide that you want to return to your home school. Thank you, Mr. Schweitzer. Just wanted to pop in with a few thoughts right then.
Not a problem, not a problem. So we can talk a little bit about the written agreement. So once you're enrolled into Cap City, you'll be asked to sign a written agreement, and that will outline all the requirements of attending Cap City, what the program entails, what your schedule will be, what your classes are, who your teachers are, et cetera. Once that is signed, you'll be contacted with a date to meet with your teacher and begin independent study. Once again, we'll reserve your spot. And I said earlier, you do not need to physically go to your current school to check out. The office managers and registrars will take care of that for you. So when you fill out your questionnaire that you're ready to go to Cap City, we will start that process for you. Next slide. And this is the information about the questionnaire. So tonight you're going to receive an online questionnaire that's going to basically ask you one of two questions, and your responses will determine if you want to go to Cap City for independent study or not. So if you respond yes, you would like to enroll my student in independent study program, my student will not begin the year in-person learning. We will begin the enrollment process for you at Cap City. Or you can choose no, I do not want my student to attend school for, I would want my student to attend school for in-person instruction. So a yes means you want to go to Cap City, and a no means you want to remain in person at your current school. So if you select yes, we'll begin that enrollment process for you. And if you select no or do not fill out the form at this time, your student should report for in-person instruction at their current school on Thursday, September 2nd. Next slide. So if your student's going to be enrolled in independent study at Cap City, like Ms. Bieda was just saying, it's possible for you to begin with short-term independent study at your current school until we're able to get you enrolled at Cap City based on that staffing. So you can be on short-term independent study for up to 15 days. We will enroll you as quickly as possible into Cap City, depending on what grade you are in, as our staffing is adjusted based upon our needs. While you're on short-term independent study, you'll continue to receive instruction from your current school virtually. And then within 15 days, you should be assigned to a teacher at Cap City for long-term independent study. So we hope to do that as quickly as possible once our staffing is adjusted based upon student interest, what grade levels, what subjects are needed, et cetera. Next slide. So now's an opportunity for you to continue putting questions into the Padlet. We also want to reiterate, if our questions have not been answered tonight, we will post them in the frequently asked questions on our website on the learn.scusd.edu on the independent study page there. So if we have not answered your questions tonight, we will be sure to respond to them on the FAQs on the website. We'll also be shortly sending out that questionnaire for you to be able to have you respond yes or no, whether you want to attend in person or whether you want to attend Cap City under the AB 130 guidelines. And I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Bieda to see if she has any comments or has read any questions that we might be able to answer in the next few minutes.
Thank you. One common question that we have heard for our seniors is from where will I graduate? And we are guaranteeing that you can graduate from your school of residence, home school, whatever it is that you call it, the school that you would be attending. If you change and come over to independent study and join the programming that Mr. Amrine has for the year, you can return and graduate with your home school if that's your choice. But I can tell you that Mr. Amrine does run a beautiful graduation ceremony. If you decide that you wanted to stay and graduate with Mr. Amrine and the Cap City team, there absolutely is a graduation ceremony there also. So I did want to share that. That's the only thing that came up for me, Mr. Schweitzer. I don't know, team, if there's anything else.
Right. Superintendent Aguilar, did you have any comments?
No, thank you very much. I do want to make sure that because we have Principal Amrine here and he has been managing this program very successfully for many years, that he is able to see if there's any other questions that you might be aware of, Principal Amrine, that you can imagine parents having a lot of anxiety about giving your years of experience and the commitment of your team at Capital City. We appreciate you being here and want to make sure that our community is able to get some of those responses to questions that I know you are probably fielding right now. So even if the questions are not listed here today, it would be very beneficial for you to provide some clarity on some of the most often asked questions.
So I think the biggest concern and question that we have that I hear all the time is if my student plans to return to the School of Instruction and they are only taking one course plus one elective at a time, how can they transition back into the School of Residence? And for that, we always say it's best to give us at least one semester. And if we know ahead of time that a child is planning to return back for semester 2, we will ensure that they take the 6 courses that they will need for a semester so that when they transition at the semester, it makes the most sense. They've done half a year with us, they've done the 6 required classes, then they transfer back to their home school, and we're as close as they can be as far as getting the half of a year done of instruction. Now, if a student is coming to us from another school, let's say they're coming from JFK and it's been at least 1 quarter, we will take the fact and enroll that student into the second half of the first semester and finish out the year. Therefore, the student is completing an entire semester, half at one school, say Kennedy, the other half with my teachers. Then we'll continue on for the next 6 weeks, providing the course of study for that student. There's always the hope, and it's easiest as described as students that want to or plan to return back to their home school need to give us at least a semester so we can try to get the courses done in the same amount of time they would do at their home school. But if they're coming in for a short amount of time, then I'm only going to be able to offer what my program is designed to do currently, which is 1 core plus 1 elective for a short amount of time, and then try to move them to the next class to try to get that time done. That being said, if we have students that want to accelerate through school, so we have, in recent weeks, I've seen that list a long time ago, and I saw plenty of students that needed 12th grade English and econ and government to graduate, 20 credits. I could get those students done in 3 months and they would be a graduate of whatever school, Sac City Unified, and they're done with school altogether. Thus, I have, students able to accelerate through the program at a more rapid rate as well. So it's always, we have a lot of different options for our students. And once we give the student the rite of passage and they're able to decide how they want their education to go, we try to make sure that we can accommodate them the best as possible. And a lot of our students just want to not have to wait for everybody else and they want to be able to get through faster. And we can definitely do that by giving the students more work every week to get done. Or like I said, if they have a lot of other things in their life happening and they need to have it slow down a little bit, we can do that. And we work with our students. I run a K-12 school, but I often take 13, 14, 15th graders and help the students as best we can to make sure we give every child the opportunity to get a high school diploma.
Thank you, Mr. Amrine. And I do want to thank you because I know that this has come quickly and you've been just so flexible and working so hard to pivot with your team. And there's something else I want to say to the community. I know school starts Thursday and you're worried. I hear that. This is what will happen Thursday. If you are signed up for Cap City and you are not yet assigned a Cap City teacher, you will be provided curriculum and support materials from your current school site to cover you for up to 15 days in that short-term independent study model. And then as we wait to find out and get our staffing to Mr. Amrine, based on finding out the number of students, so then we know what our staffing needs are, you'll be assigned your teacher at Cap City. Did you have something else that you wanted to offer on that, Mr. Amrine? Sorry if I interjected.
No, it's okay. I'm seeing some of the questions that are in there, and one of the things I like to point out to parents: if you enroll your child over the next 3 days, my counselor or myself will personally go out there, talk with you, look at the student's transcript, assign a teacher, give you work to do, and then just for example, you and your child choose that Wednesday is the best day for you to come in and meet with the teacher. The student will have work to do the rest of this week, and then they will meet with their teacher on Wednesday of next week. So they would not go to school because we're only coming 1 day a week. They would actually start school next Wednesday, but the assignment that we give them gives them attendance for the entire week until that first meeting of the school. If we get them signed up tomorrow and we say, come back on Thursday, they start on Thursday, and then every Thursday they'll meet with the teacher. So only 1 day a week coming in, we will, as best we can, meet with you, give you an assignment, sign them up for classes, get them enrolled, and then they start on the designated day and time that we have chosen as a community, and then get the students started on their assignment right away. So we're trying to do that as fast as we can. So if you've already enrolled with our school, if we haven't talked to you, then the only thing I can think of is that it's potentially being held up by the fact there's an active IEP. So we're waiting for clarification on that. Or we called all the numbers and we're not being able to connect one way or the other. So we're on campus between 8 and 4. Call us. We'll try to do it over the phone. And if you're an actively enrolled student in our district in high school, I can pull up the transcript in our system, find out what classes you need. But for the most part, a 9th grader, I don't even have to look at. I can just tell you what classes they need. 10th graders, for the most part, would only need if a student failed a class prior. I would need to know the transcript to know that. Otherwise, I can give them 10th grade or 11th or 12th grade classes, depending on the grade level that the students are in. So we're extremely busy. We're short-staffed, but we're doing the best we can. And like I said, as long as you either come to us and we don't have to have the student in, but come to us and we'll meet with you. And we're pretty much standing outside of front of the school, and we're meeting with every family we can as the days go through.
Thank you to you and your team, Mr. Amrine, and to our community. Thank you. Thank you for your questions. We've captured them all, and our chief of comms is very busy getting all of your questions together, and she's actually already started to design some additional FAQs that we'll get onto our website for you so that we can communicate out with others who are not with us this evening. And if you want to hear this presentation again, or you'd like to hear the elementary version, which had just some small adjustments, we're going to have those posted for you in our community. So make sure you share with others that these will be available for us to be able to view. And anything else, Superintendent, before we send our community off for some rest?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chief Vieira. I also too want to just thank everyone, Principal Amorine, for his generosity in expressing to you our commitment to make sure that we answer as many questions as we can. I also do want to encourage you to feel free to also make contact at your school site. We have a wonderful team, of course, leading each of our school sites. So if you're unable to reach Mr. Amorine or somebody at the district office, I would encourage you to just start at your school site. Our site leaders are also aware of some of the information that we're providing. We are providing them with a lot of information, and we want to remain committed to making sure that, as Mr. Amorine said, we can be outside ready to answer questions that you might have. Again, I do want to just acknowledge that for a variety of reasons, there was a delay in our ability to communicate. That is on us. That is on me as superintendent. So again, my deepest apologies. I know that it's almost 9 o'clock. We look forward to hearing from you. We will continue to put out as much information as we can about the independent study program. We will remain committed to following AB 130 as it was intended by our legislature, and follow the law, of course. So again, thank you. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. And again, for those of you who are going to be sending your students to in-person or to independent study, let's make this a wonderful year. We have a lot of challenges, as you know. We are going to continue to do everything we can to keep ourselves safe and healthy.